We coach people. These are mostly growth companies, Seed Plus, Series A, Series B companies, later stage that we work with, and we help them get their campaign together, provide investor engagement, make introductions, run email and digital marketing campaigns for outreach, run pitch events, etc. So we're making introductions for each of these guys. We do the legwork that people normally have to do for these campaigns because there's just a lot of mailing and event management that goes into it, and that's mostly what we do. So let's go to the next slide. So today we're in our family office roundtable. It's a 2-hour event where we talk about topics relevant to family offices, and we have some of our companies pitch. We also have other online events such as the virtual quick pitch. This is a 2-hour event with our tech companies where they're pitching to a panel of tech investors, and then there are tech investors in the audience. And third, we have the Life Science Syndicate. This is for our life science companies where they pitch to primarily physicians and investors in life science deals. If you want to learn more about the events at 10 Capital, go to 10capital.group and click on the events tab, and you'll find out more about all the other events that we have going on each month. Next slide. If you're raising funding, go ahead and take a picture of that QR code on the screen and send it to us, and we will be glad to fill out the form. It'll send it to us, and we'll look at that to see if that's a fit for our program and if this would be a benefit to you. We'll set up a call and talk with you about it afterwards just to make sure we understand everything about your deal. So looking forward to talking with you guys about your campaign. Next slide. So in addition to helping startups raise funding, one of the things we're doing is actually helping with content. We have what's called the Startup Funding Espresso, and the time it takes to drink an espresso, you can learn more about startup funding and investing. These are 300-word micro blog posts with short podcast audio that goes with it. We've done several thousand of these so far over the years, and we've now put them inside a chatbot. We call that chatbot Ava. And instead of doing a search through the espressos to find an answer, you just simply ask your question, and the chatbot gives you the answer itself. So with that, wanted to show you a little bit more about how that works. We'll click the play button here, give you an overview of our chatbot and what it can do for you. Are you looking to transform your investment strategy with new cutting-edge AI? Let me introduce our newest addition to the 10 Capital team, Ava, your personal AI venture assistant.
Hi there. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Ava, your personal AI venture assistant. I'm your new best friend in the world of investing in startups, the 10 Capital AI chatbot. I'm here to make your journey through the startup ecosystem easier, faster, and a lot more fun. Need help finding your next big investment? Or maybe you're a founder looking for fundraising tips? I've got you covered. I pull all my knowledge from over 500 blogs, countless podcasts, and even some nifty calculators, like the How Fundable Is Your Startup tool, to give you the answers you need. So how do I work? Easy. You simply go to where I live on startupfundingespresso.com and look for me in the bottom right. As soon as I appear, go ahead and click on me to let me know you're here. And then there you go. All your questions answered at your fingertips. Whether you're into health tech, biotech, life sciences, or any of the other exciting fields out there, I'm equipped to help you navigate the trends, challenges, and opportunities in each one. Got a question? Just ask. And guess what? I even pull insights from the 10 Capital Network podcast on Investor Connect. It's packed with expert advice, success stories, and more, all designed to help you succeed in the venture capital world. So what are you waiting for? Let's chat. I'm here 24/7 to help you find the right answers, connect with great opportunities, and make the most out of your investments. See you on startupfundingespresso.com.
Well, thank you for that. With that, let's go ahead and kick in today's presentation. Today we have with us Herbert Drayton. He's a partner at Highmark Capital, and today he's going to be talking about building capacity before change, and wanted to hear more from one of our favorite presenters, Herbert. Herbert, can you tell us more about yourself and what you do at Highmark Capital, and then let's go into your presentation.
Sure, Hall. Thank you for the introduction. I'll let you see my face while I introduce myself. I'm based in wonderful Charleston, South Carolina, so happy to be here today. Highmark Capital is a venture fund. We focus on investing in startups. Primarily right now, we're looking at AI startups led by underrepresented founders in the Southeast. Most of our investments right now are are in the state of South Carolina, and I'm looking forward to sharing my perspectives on, you see the title here, Building Capacity Before Change, Laying the Foundation for Scalable Impact. And go ahead, Hall.
No, well, thank you for joining us today. What led you to build this presentation?
Well, I've been, I owned a boutique management buyout firm, did that for about 15 years, converted over to a venture capital fund back in 2022, I believe. And over that time, I've found that there are a number of things that I believe that most investors should be aware of prior to making a commitment to a startup or an early stage or late stage companies. Most of the due diligence that I've seen is just simply focused on the founders and also on their business. But there should be an ecosystem that's surrounded an entrepreneur to ensure that they're successful.
Well, that's great. Well, that's great. Well, let's go ahead and kick into your presentation and learn more.
All right, good deal. I'm going to come off camera. I don't think you need to see my face. Hall, please confirm that my presentation is viewable.
Not yet.
Not yet. Let's try this then. How about now?
Not yet.
Oh, geez. Okay. Don't you love technical glitches?
I'm sure we'll get it done here. Let's see if you turn your camera back on.
I'm sorry. It's on me. I got it right here.
Oh,
We'll share.
it's coming up.
All right. We got it?
We see it now. You're good to go.
All right. Outstanding. Well, folks, thanks so much for enduring the technical difficulties. Welcome and thank you for joining 10 Capital today. I'll be discussing the critical yet often overlooked component of sustainable investments, ensuring that the right capacity exists before expecting outsized returns. This approach will ensure that founders are not just funded, but are truly ready to scale, and the environment exists in which they could do that. So the goal is to explore the infrastructure, mentorship, just a brief nod on patient capital and how we can lay the foundation for robust entrepreneurial ecosystems, ultimately driving long-term scalable impact and returns. And after each slide, I'll pose a rhetorical questions just for you to ponder as we move through. And the first question is, if we expect entrepreneurs to build successful companies, shouldn't we include as due diligence to ensure that the environment exists that allows them to thrive? But before we talk about capital, let's talk about readiness. Too often investments fail because the right support systems weren't in place to sustain growth. And these are probably questions that you don't ask as you're focused on the business, you're focused on the founder, you're focused on their go-to-market strategy, you're focused on making sure that they have that first or sustainable customer base, a distribution partner. But without the infrastructure, mentorship, and community backing, even the best ideas struggle to take off. If you take a look at the middle component here, investable founders require a pipeline built on education, network, and resources. I know here in the state of South Carolina, we're still trying to build that strong ecosystem to support those entrepreneurs. A well-supported founder is a well-positioned founder. And when you decide to invest, I would ensure that the ecosystems are in place. If it's not, ensure you work with the entrepreneur to create an environment where they don't just start businesses, but they can build scalable, investable ventures. And the question I would pose to you here is, how many great ideas have been lost simply because their creators lacked access to the right support? No entrepreneur succeeds in isolation. Building an entrepreneurial ecosystem requires alignment among accelerators, business development organizations, and educational institutions to provide founders with the right tools at the right time. So if you're making an investment in an entrepreneur, I'll say right here in South Carolina, it would be helpful to understand what accelerators exist around them, what business development organizations are in their area, And in terms of market readiness and access to potential customers, are there customers that they can engage where within walking distance or driving distance? I tell entrepreneurs often, if you can't sell at home, you can't sell abroad. And abroad doesn't mean internationally. Abroad means within a neighboring state. And as you look at accelerators and incubators in these communities, too often accelerators and incubators, they have an 8-week, 12-week, even a 12-month program. But then after graduation, there's a cliff. Make sure that when you talk with entrepreneurs, if these programs are in their communities, understand what happens after they graduate from an accelerator. Is there funding available? Is there coaching available to move these entrepreneurs into these spaces where they can get funding? And it's not just a cliff and we leave entrepreneurs out on their own. Again, the question here, if you already have the expertise and resources within your networks, are you truly working with these entrepreneurs to connect them? Even if that accelerator is not in their community where they're domiciled, is there an accelerator that you may be aware of that you can connect them to? Just keep that in mind. Next, think of, strategies for building infrastructure. If you will, think of a skyscraper, if you will. Before that skyscraper rises, a strong foundation must be laid. The same principle applies to entrepreneurship. Without proper infrastructure, companies they crumble under the weight of growth. It's nice to talk to entrepreneurs about businesses that they can scale, but as I said in the previous slide, if you can't sell in your own backyard or your own front yard, you will never be able to sell outside of that space. One of the things I look to do when I'm working with entrepreneurs is to build scaffolding around the business and the entrepreneur. And that's doing a complete assessment of the skill sets and talents of that entrepreneur. If an entrepreneur is not in the digital marketing space, I find it hard to believe that they will understand how to put together a digital marketing strategy. So if you're going to make the investment in a company and you realize that they need digital marketing, make sure that you're providing the scaffolding needed to provide the digital marketing. If you're investing in an entrepreneur that is struggling with a P&L balance sheet or a cash flow statement, make sure that you're bringing in a bookkeeper or a CPA firm to train them. You got to commit those resources, I would say, at least over a 12-month period to ensure that they're getting the mentoring and coaching that they need if it's in the financial space. Because one of the other things I found is that most entrepreneurs know the thing that they do, but they don't know all the things that are required to support the things that they do. And that's your marketing, that's the operational expertise, that's understanding the financials, that's understanding the customer success piece. I've never found an entrepreneur that understands what true customer success means. We bolt on the customer success component. We partner with a company that they wake up at night, they wake up in the morning thinking about customer support. They go to bed thinking about customer support. And the term that I share with entrepreneurs when we're having conversations with them is that support should follow the sun, meaning that if you've got a support partner, someone should always be waking up every 1 hour, every hour, or every 2 hour, providing daytime support. And we found this out when we launched a SaaS company. When we were in the Southeast, it was fine because all of our customers were on the Southeast. But then we scaled to Central Standard Time out to the West Coast, got some customers in Great Britain. And so we couldn't have standard support 9 to 5 or 8 to 5. We had to have round-the-clock support. And one of the lessons learned there is that if most of our clients were in Texas and in California, and when we had a bug or a problem with the application, after a couple of problems, we had to implement as part of our service level agreements that no problem will hit the next time zone. That ensured that, by the time, if we find out a problem by 7 a.m., By 8 a.m., we want to solve the problem so that our central time zone customers weren't affected. And God knows we did not want the problems to hit Texas or California. So these are the things that you learn, and these are the things that are critical in terms of building out the infrastructure to support the investments that you make. So would you expect a house to stand without a foundation? And clearly the answer is no. And my question to you is then, so why do we expect startups to scale without ensuring that they have a solid foundation? Mentorship. I learned the power of mentorship many, many years ago. My mentor was a guy by the name of James Ferguson. He was the president and CEO of General Foods International. And I met with Jim, once a month. We went to lunch and talked. And I will tell you, one of the good things I found about him being a great mentor, when he died, I was in Colorado, and his wife called me and said, "Our dear friend is gone." And in that moment, I wanted to know so much more about Jim, because I thought that there was so much more he had left to teach me. And as we're wont to do, I went on the internet and I started searching for James Ferguson. And what was amazing is that I could not find anything on the internet that Jim had not shared with me. So when you're engaging folks and introducing them to mentors, make sure that these mentors are truly pouring into these entrepreneurs and they're self-aware about what they can teach these folks, but more importantly, have an understanding of what it is that these entrepreneurs need to know. Capital alone doesn't build good companies. Guidance does. Founders who have access to experienced mentors, they can navigate challenges faster and make better decisions, avoiding costly mistakes. And a good mentor truly gives founders a safe space. And keep in mind, mentorship is not just about advice. It's about access. Whenever I had a career change or something sticky, I could always reach out to Jim and get time on his calendar. And for the purposes of this call, the right connections open doors to funding, partnerships, strategic growth opportunities. So investing in mentorship is investing in the future of business. And with regard to partnerships, one of my companies, we've developed a strategic relationship with a partner that will give us access to 29,000 potential customers. They're going to walk us into the door. And our goal is really just to get on a trajectory where we're going to acquire 10% of that base. And that 29,000 represents a third of the market that we're targeting. And for the math wizards on the phone, 2,900, that 10%, the SaaS company is going to be charging $3,999 a month. So you can do the math on that and see what that will do for this startup. My question here is, how many promising founders could succeed if they had just one great mentor in their corner? Keep in mind, you might have to help them find that mentor. So the long-term implications of capital here, when we think impact investing, people typically will think about, minorities, underserved folks. Impact investing is not simply the demographic of your founder. It's about the impact that you're going to have in communities. One of our companies that we have, we're targeting the mental health of first responders and military personnel being deployed. So please keep that in mind. And it's not measured over years or quarters. It's measured over the impact that you will have on the customer demographic. When you have a patient mindset with respect to your investing, you not only ensure that that impactful businesses are not forced into short-term thinking, which a lot of them are, but this approach will create sustainable enterprises that deliver both financial and social returns. So if we're willing to wait years for a tree to bear fruit, I would ask, why do we expect instant returns from businesses built for lasting impact, and more importantly for this audience, for an exit where you can get a multiple on your invested capital. Taking a look at our portfolio, what I will share with you is that all of these companies have an AI component, and it's my challenge to all of the founders is, did we create a solution to a problem that we have to push our way into a customer base, or did we create a solution where customers will see what the solution is and pull us into the space to solve the problem that they have? Too often, and I was guilty of this in the past as well, we create a solution in a vacuum, and then we expect, unlike a light bulb where light is inside that vacuum, we expect that the glowing and the marketing, the pizzazz marketing we put around it will invite people in. C certified, it's a very analog space in terms of both certifications, logging, who's got certification. It has an impact on insurance premiums for boat owners. Obviously, it has an impact on payouts from insurance carriers. Haruki, I mentioned this earlier, targeting military and first responders. So oftentimes with mental health, it's something that we deal with after a traumatic event has occurred. With Haruki, this platform is designed to train folks on resiliency, regulation, and restoration with respect to intermittent traumas that they may face. This is a platform that came out of a federally funded research and development center. They originally developed it to help reduce the divorce rate of deployed and redeployed service members. And the example I like to use here is, and I spent time in the Marine Corps and Air Force. A Marine goes on deployment for 90 days. They leave home, they're the king of the castle. They come back, they think they're the king of the castle. So when they leave, if they call their spouse and they're having a conversation with them, just because that person doesn't have time to talk to you at 5 o'clock like they used to when you were home and they were shared parenting, it doesn't mean that anything bad is going on because they say they can't have a conversation with you. They've got stuff to do. And also when you return home, you can't be the king of the castle. So just helping service members who are deployed understand the dynamics of the changes in the relationships where they're deployed and redeployed. That's how this platform was developed. We moved it into the first responder space to ensure that, service members understand, not first responders. If you go to a house fire and there are 4 kids in it and one of the kids dies, this platform actually teaches you coping strategies to deal with that type of stuff. Nexus RFP, it's a platform that was designed that will help with carve-outs in federal, state, and local contracts. If there are carve-outs for veterans or 8As, this platform actually identifies those contracts and actually does matchmaking with those veterans who own companies. And if the veterans want to propose, make a proposal on the RFP, that actually gives them the response in an editable format so that they could present the pitch. FOIA Assist is that came out of a federally funded research and development center as well. Nearly 500 federal agencies have FOIA offices. There's a significant backlog. There are 37 standard redactions that have to happen when a contract is released into the public domain. This one uses AI to identify those 37 standard redactions and also allows you to add custom redactions into the platform as well. And then persistent overwatch, advanced aerial surveillance. Not only does it attach to any drone, but it does digital mapping to persons of interest. This is a law enforcement one. Almost, I was reluctant to lean into this one because it kind of gives a sense of Chinese, the Chinese government. So we're, as you see, that one's in due diligence as well. I hope in this short time I've shared with you the capacity building for entrepreneurs is just not about the business or the entrepreneur or the team, but do they have the environment and the resources where they're domiciled to ensure that they're successful after you've written the check? And I would also say that after you've written the check, are there things that you could do to support that entrepreneur, identifying a mentor, identifying a coach, identifying an accelerator and incubator that may be within your geographic region that you can refer them to and encourage them to apply for? I think that the best investments are those made in people with the understanding that the ecosystems are there and it's not just a business. So I would say as you make investments, as you engage with 10 Capital and other folks that put companies in front of you, I'd say let's all try to work together to strengthen the entrepreneurial pipeline, ensuring that founders have the tools, resources, and funding they need to drive scalable impact. And I'll leave you with this question, and Hall, I'll turn it back over to you. If we truly believe in the power of entrepreneurship to change the world, it's probably time that we invest in the foundation and the ecosystems and not just focus on the outcome. Thank you.
Right. Great presentation, Herbert. The first question is what's the role of the family office in these entrepreneur ecosystems? Where do you see them playing best?
I think family offices, if you've got a geographical focus, or if you've got a technology sector focus, you could do a quick search in your region. If you're investing in a company, let's say in North Carolina, as a part of your due diligence, understand the accelerators in the community, understand the funders in the communities. I love family offices and how they invest, but make an attempt to understand the VCs in the community. If you're doing early stage investing, understand the VCs that are doing early stage investing as well. I will say that a request from a family office to a VC to co-invest is much better than an entrepreneur trying to get a VC to invest. Because, as a family office, you're telling the VC, I have skin in the game and I would like for you to co-invest. I think helping these folks understand, helping them identify additional funding would be helpful. From my perspective, if what I have done with the companies that I've invested in is I've made sure that I understand, as an example, I had a conversation with one founder who's not quite left their full-time job yet. And I said, well, what is the floor that you need for a salary? And let's say that's $100,000. So my goal then is to help them, go after that next round. If it's $100,000 a year, I know that the floor is $300,000, so that I could tell that entrepreneur, you need to, okay, I'm going to make sure you're funded for 3 years, so $300,000 plus whatever they need in operational. Let's just say that's another $300,000. So it's easier for me to reach out to VCs, angel groups, institutional investors, SPV, whatever you want to do, and help source that next round of funding for that entrepreneur so that they could focus on their business. Because as most of you probably realize, fundraising is hard. And fundraising is a skill and a talent that most founders don't have. They just know how to do that thing that they do. So they're horrible at fundraising. So I would encourage family offices, as a part of your due diligence, ask yourself, are there resources or connections I have in the funding space that I can engage to say, hey, I'm going to do this. Will you co-invest if we hit X milestone?
Well, one thing family offices do for the ecosystem is they fund emerging managers in the VC space. Pension funds, foundations don't usually do that. They have to have 10, 15-year track record before those guys come in. But where have you seen the family offices impact on the emerging manager side?
The thing I will say with family offices, you may have an emerging manager come to you and say, hey, my minimum is, if we're looking at the minimum investment is $500,000. I would say just blow past that and set your own minimums. If you've got $100,000 to commit to an emerging manager, just offer, I mean, counter offer. I don't care what the docs say. Just counter offer that, hey, we'll come in at 100,000, or we'll give you 50, assuming that you find another 50 to match this, right? What you're doing is changing the narrative for that emerging manager. Now they're not calling Hall and saying, hey, Hall, I need $5 million. They're calling Hall and saying, hey, XYZ family office has committed 50. Can I get you coming for 50 or 100 to match that or 2x that? That's a completely different conversation, because now they've got a little bit of social capital, a little bit of reputational capital when they're having the conversation.
Great. One comment I hear from family offices is that they don't have a deal flow process in place. So funding startups is a bit of a challenge. What are some strategies to get around that?
I would say find an emerging manager that you could bolt on to their due diligence process. A lot of times folks will ask, well, what is your pipeline? I think every emerging manager should have a pipeline, if you will. And I think because most family offices may have someone who's operationally sound, if you will, and that doesn't mean that the emerging managers. So I would say bolt on to a few emerging managers. And quite frankly, if you ask them to send you a copy of their due diligence process in a Word document, I would say just deconstruct that and create your own due diligence, because you're, as a family office, you probably have tons of, fund managers calling you. Just ask them, hey, send me a sample of your due diligence process, and then just look at those and create one yourself.
Great. Well, most family offices have impact investing as a part of their thesis, but when we talk to startups and we ask for their impact, say graduating students, we often get the answer back, we've done 3 students so far, or 5. How does a family office review that and say this is going to have big impact someday versus it is always going to be 3 to 5? How do you assess impact, I guess, at the early stage?
I would recommend, if you can, have conversations with the individuals. And when I say the individuals, if they're asking for, if you want to know the impact and say, well, we've invested in these 3 women founders, right? It's more important to understand the how instead of the what, if you will. So if you're having conversation, if they said we've invested in 3 female founders, ask them if you can have a conversation with them, and then talk to these founders about what was the process like. If you find that the process was arduous and bumpy, then they don't have a process that's scalable. But if you find that, that entrepreneur says, well, I had 4 or 5 calls with Herb. He asked me questions. He helped me identify potential board members. He talked to me about a productization and commercialization specialist. So those are the things that you're looking for, right? Not that, my God, it took 9 months for me to get $50,000 from this dude. That's telling me that they're not truly invested in impact. When an entrepreneur is looking for funding, they're not looking for a 6-month process. They're looking for some signaling that says that you will be engaged.
Great. So tell us more about your fund and what you're doing there with your group, and what success you've seen so far.
Early on, my target initially was, underserved, underrepresented founders in the Southeast. And quite frankly, what I found is that there weren't a lot of venture backable, underserved, underrepresented businesses in the region. There are a lot of Main Street businesses that needed like $20,000 or less to help them hit velocity. And when I say hit velocity, these companies would probably never get above $500,000 or $1 million, right? But they would create a sustainable living wage for these entrepreneurs, and you can get 18 to 25% on your money. What I've done instead is partnered with a federally funded research and development center, a MITRE, in conversations with others, and identified IP that has a commercial use. I mentioned the Herbert platform. That's IP that came out of the federally funded research and development center. And then the other one, Nexus RFP, that came out of them as well. And so I just reverse engineered the process, identified the business, and then recruited the founders and brought all the founders in. We've got 8 founders now that we've recruited in. There's a founding CEO. And as I said earlier, that scaffolding, just creating that scaffolding. I'll just, with Nexus RFP, we got a patent attorney, Filipino, African-American woman that's actually going to be running that as a CEO. And then we've got 2 other African-American males as founders. But bringing her in, partnering with a product and commercialization specialist, connecting them with a bookkeeper and an accounting firm that's setting up the financials, training, partnering with a law firm. Most of these folks, they don't know what a cap table is. They don't know what a term sheet is. So partner with a law firm that's educating them on all of these things as well, and creating a go-to-market strategy, helping them identify what the support structure looks like. And that's been successful to me. I've got a couple of companies in due diligence now that they're revenue generating, but again, they're startups and they lack that scaffolding needed to help them hit velocity. And when I say hit velocity, all the companies that we're investing in, they'll all generate a couple $1 million here within 24 to 36 months.
Great. Well, appreciate the update there, Herbert. Thanks so much for a great presentation. We're at the end of our time, and we'll connect you with people in the audience who would like to learn more about the work you're doing there as well. With that, let's go ahead and switch over to our first presenter today. We have Mark Deschamps of Bioxodes, who will be pitching first. Each company gets 10 minutes to pitch, 5 minutes for Q&A. And so please post those in the chat box if you have any questions. And with that, let's go ahead and bring up Mark first. Mark, we see your slides, so kick off whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Al. And thank you for the great presentation, Herbert. Before, I worked personally also in an ecosystem, so I understood very well your points. So Bioxodes is a biotech company, and the aim of our biotech company is really to bring a new hope, a breakthrough hope for patients affected by stroke. I will go back on the stroke in a while. So the mission is really to develop therapies for a wide range of thromboinflammatory indication. The first one, as you understood, is stroke. So Bioxodes, our first compound, is a first-in-class treatment, and we are dedicated this first-in-class treatment for the first indication, which is intracerebral hemorrhage. We are already in a phase 2A clinical trial, so-called BIRCH trial. It is an open-label control trial. And we are going to produce in a couple of months the first interim data, so the first clinical data among patients. And in parallel, we are also submitting actually for orphan drug designation because, and again, I will go back on that, stroke is very prevalent in the population, but hemorrhagic stroke is by far less. And in Europe and in the US, it is an orphan disease. And so we submitted for both FDA and EMA recently, and we expect a decision by the end of the first quarter. What is particular to this first compound, Bioxodes, it's coming from a platform. Sorry for that. So I have something in my screen. Voila. So, from a platform coming actually from the tick saliva. If you understand what the tick is doing, the tick is the insect staying in the host of the animal. However, the tick is not seen and rejected by the immune system. And on top of that, the tick is keeping the blood liquid to continue to eat the blood and do the reproductory cycle. And so after a long research at the Free University of Brussels, Belgium, so a sequence was identified, which is a sequence of small proteins, 67 amino acids. And based on that, we could develop not only the first indication, but also other indication like ischemic stroke or other thromboinflammatory indication. And we have strong intellectual property portfolio and a very evergreen strategy for IP. We are a team of seasoned executives. Personally, I spent more than 30 years at GlaxoSmithKline, either in Belgium or in London at the HQ, managing companies in Europe and managing commercial operations. And we have an extensive experience in advancing drugs from discovery to market because the chief medical officer is coming from Roche and spent 20 years actually of his life in doing that. Currently, the company is in a Series A extension. So the fundraising is ongoing, and we want to continue to fund the phase 2A, but also to anticipate the phase 2B. Phase 2B will be an efficacy trial. And the Series B, which is supposed to fund actually the full phase 2B and the new indication, will start in Q2 this year. And the company raised to date 34 million euros, so let's say $36 million since the creation. So, as I said, we have the possibility to develop not only the first indication, but also other indication with Biox 101. We are also looking to develop Biox 102, which will be a long-acting formulation, and Biox 201, because I will go back again on that. We have a very, very strong anti-inflammatory activity with these compounds, and we would like to continue to focus the development on acute and chronic inflammatory disease as well. So coming back to stroke, stroke is considered as the second leading cause of death and disability around the world. And this is a neglected disease generating a lot of burden, not just on the patient and the family, but as you can imagine, a lot of cost also for the healthcare system. And there are two types of stroke. The one which is the primary objective of the company is hemorrhagic stroke, which is due to a rupture of a blood vessels in the brain. It's only 13% of the cases in US and in Europe, but responsible for 40% of all stroke-related deaths. And there is absolutely no indicated treatment, no specific treatment currently available to help the patient to avoid going too far, actually, in the with neuronal death and damages in the brain. And on top of that, what we are focusing, the first indication, intracerebral hemorrhage, is the most common type. Next to that, you have ischemic stroke. Most of the time when you hear about stroke, it is an ischemic stroke. Because again, in US and in Europe, it's 87% of all strokes. But there is a treatment, standard of care, alteplase for thrombolysis, dissolving blood clots, or if it is too late, a thrombectomy, so a surgery to take the clots out of the brain. And the last unmet medical need for ischemic stroke is the prevention of secondary hemorrhage and ischemic lesions. So we are focusing on intracerebral hemorrhage, so hemorrhagic stroke. And if you look to the milestone, the near-term milestone, so we are working on the first interim report, so the first clinical data among patients, and we'll have this report by Q1, end of Q1 this year. So the clinical trial will continue to enroll until the end of this Q1 as well. We will generate the second interim analysis after the full enrollment. And as I said, we expect FDA and EMA decision or orphan drug designation also by the end of this first quarter. Once we will have orphan drug designation status or decision on that, we will move to FDA and EMA to discuss fast track approval and prime application in Europe because, again, there is nothing to treat the patient, nothing available. So we might, after the phase 2B, end up with a conditional marketing approval. Next to that, we would like with the Series B to cover the development of Biox 101 in ICH for the phase 2B, potentially the pivotal efficacy trial, but also to move the new indication also in the preclinical stage and to continue to develop our new compound in acute and chronic inflammatory disease. Alors, to come back on the mode of action Biox 101, and again, the fact that it is a protein identified, it's not an extract of the saliva of the tick, it is a sequence identified in the saliva. We combine very interesting activities, and that's a unique mode of action. On one end, we have an anti-inflammatory effect because we block we inhibit actually the neutrophil, either the migration but also the activation and the release of the net, so-called the netosis, which is very lethal for the neurons. And we have an anti-clotting effect, so we could prevent the secondary, let's say, ischemia in the brain because around the hemorrhage, we have formation of small blood clots, which are going to generate further ischemia in the brain. We can prevent because we inhibit the factor 11 activated and factor 12 activated, but without increasing the bleeding risk. Patient is coming with an hemorrhage. You don't want to increase the hemorrhage when he's coming to the hospitals, but with our compound, we can prevent actually the neuroinflammatory cascade and prevent the formation of the blood clots, but without generating further bleeding. And that's what we have demonstrated actually in preclinical model. So I don't want to go into the details, but just look to the left-hand side of the slide. In this specific ICH model, murine model, we validated the safety profile, no increase of hemorrhage, no increase of edema. We demonstrated a clear anti-inflammatory effect, so we prevent the infiltration and the activation of the neutrophil. Again, this white blood cell is coming after 4 to 6 hours on the site of the hemorrhage. Protective effect on the neuron, so we decrease the neuronal death in the area of the hemorrhage, which is very key for helping patients to recover faster and better. Functional outcomes is not yet available because we are going to present the data to the Stroke Congress in Los Angeles next week. But we have a positive effect on the functional outcomes, and we demonstrated also the antithrombotic activity in this model, but also in a lot of other models. So going back to the pathophysiology of ICH, the patient is coming to the hospital with primary brain injury, with the hemorrhage. We can't do anything about that. But what the physicians can do for the patient today is to prevent the secondary brain injury, again, which are happening after 6 to 72 hours, up to 72 hours after the onset of the hemorrhage. And this is mediated by the neutrophil. So the neuroinflammatory cascade generated by the neutrophil and generating further ischemia in the brain, edema, neuronal damage. And in the blue box, you can see what we have proven actually in the preclinical model. So the activity of BioX101, we don't increase the bleeding risk. We inhibit the neutrophil and the recruitment of the nets. In other words, we protect the neurons. We have an antithrombotic activity and no increase in the edema. So we went through a phase 1 trial with healthy volunteers, which was positive. Then we moved to a phase 2A trial, which is a safety trial. So that's a randomized open label. So the good news, we can see what's happening to the patient. Proof of concept study to evaluate safety first, safety tolerability, and efficacy among patients coming with a spontaneous ICH. And this is actually an IV perfusion. So we administer the drug during 48 hours to cover 72 hours, really the window where it is impossible for the physician really to give something to the patient. So we really confirm the safety of BioX101. We did it after 8 patients, and now we're looking after 16, the interim report. And we are also exploring potential impact of BioX101 on efficacy endpoints, secondary objective, looking to edema, neuroinflammation, mortality, functional outcome at different time points, brain ischemia, deep venous thrombosis. So one word about the market. It is, as you understood, a very nice market potential because the unmet medical need is very high. Again, there is nothing to treat the patient. 2 million cases a year worldwide, 200,000 cases a year if you combine US, Europe, the big 5 countries, and Japan. No competition, so you don't have to displace any competitor. You don't have to displace any medical intervention except for the very dramatic cases where they have to go through surgery. The market for pharma industry is very interesting because it is concentrated just in intensive care unit and a stroke unit, even in China. And we are looking to, as Bioxodes, we are looking to focus on US, EU, potentially Japan, and seeking partnership for China. Because in China, I spoke about 200,000 cases in US, EU, and Japan. In China, it's 800,000 cases a year. So it is a huge burden. It's the first cause of mortality and disability, stroke in general, in China. So if you take the realistic assumption, if you limit the geography to US, EU5, and Japan, you can easily generate $1.5 billion peak sales, annual sales. And if you add China and the rest of Europe, you can double very easily this potential. So also looking to exit, I took some example actually of a recent exit for rare disease. Again, here we are speaking about orphan disease, but that's a rare disease as well. And you can see that the potential is there to interest pharmaceutical industry. And we are, as you can see at the bottom of the slide, discussing already with quite a lot of pharma companies Not all are on the slide here, and they are all waiting for the interim phase 2A results, which are going to be produced by the end of this quarter. At the very bottom of the slide, you see also the Chinese companies we are discussing with today. So, last slide, with regard to the financing, before moving to the Series B, we are looking to extend actually the Series A. We did the first closing of the pre-closing of the Series A with 12 million euros, and we are looking for 5 additional one. Why? Because we want to complete the Birch phase 2A study, but we want also to anticipate the phase 2B by blocking a slot at CDMO level to produce the batch and a new formulation, because we have a new formulation stable at fridge temperature, so really friendly for the people working in ICU or in stroke unit. And the term is a convertible loan with a conversion at 30% discount to the Series B share price, and also an 8% annual interest, which will be convertible as well. The post-money valuation of the company today is more or less $34 million. That's in a nutshell what Bioxodes is and what is actually our investment opportunity. And as you can imagine, at the time we will have the first interim clinical data, we'll have a jump in the company valuation. So this is an opportunity for investors to join the company today.
Great. So we have 2 questions for you. Do you have any
Sure.
large animal data? It seems everything works in mice so far.
Yeah, actually, we don't have a lot of validated intracerebral hemorrhage model. So we started actually to test the product in a different animal models, including pigs and monkeys. Just at the beginning, it was really for the antithrombotic activity, and then we moved to the only intracerebral hemorrhage model in mouse, and there the results are very striking.
Great. And the next question is, what have you done with the 34 million euros so far? Can you describe the milestones you met with that?
Yeah, coming to what Herbert said, we are in a very strong ecosystem in Belgium since a long time. And so we are very well supported either with public investor. So we have the Federal Fund of Belgium, we have a local public investor, and we have a lot of high net worth individual, family office, and people, angels supporting the company today. And that's where the money is coming from.
Great. With that, we're at the end of our time. I want to thank you, Mark, for a great presentation. And with that, we'll move to our next presenter, Mike Sloan of Simple Labs. Mike, if you go ahead and launch your slides and kick off when ready. Good job, Mark.
Good. Let me get to my screen. There we go. Can everybody see that?
We see your slides. You're good to go.
All right, great. Let me get rid of all the stuff on the side. Okay, so I'm Mike Sloan. I'm the CEO and founder of Simple Labs. We make a product in the wine and spirits space called Cogni. I grew up in bourbon country and got to know a lot of distillers. And then now I live in Napa Valley and I've got to know a lot of winemakers. And there's 2 things that you notice when you work with these people. Is one is they are very interested in making premium level stuff, the best possible stuff they can. And 2, they face a lot of daunting challenges that they're having a hard time overcoming. I'd like to talk a little bit about some of those challenges. One is angel share. In bourbon and whiskey, it's a big one. It's over $14 billion lost every year. Evaporation is a normal part of the process. Angel share is a normal thing, but when it's excessive and you open a barrel up and half of the product is gone, it's a very big problem for them that they're facing. Spoilage is another one in the wine industry. It's over $7.6 billion. 1% of barrels go bad simply because of insufficient testing and insufficient labor to do the testing. They spend tens of millions of dollars on these issues, and they're losing on a lot of fronts. It's pretty clear that a better solution is needed, and continuous barrel monitoring is definitely needed as a part of this. I want to talk a little bit about a use case real quick. So in bourbon, producers lack real-time data of their critical parameters, and they often misclassify their mid and premium product barrels, results in these billions of dollars lost that I talked about. I want to explain that a little bit more. So in the current method, they're putting at least 1,000 barrels a day in a large-scale facility every day into their rick houses. They let that age for about 2 to 4 years, and then a small number of those barrels are randomly selected. And from those samples they collect, they check the color, flavor, and alcohol. And if it meets their recipe, these become their premium barrels that they choose. The problem is because they don't know the contents and quantity inside, they are frequently misselecting the right barrels for this process. What we offer is the same barrels are going in 1,000 a day, but we'll have a percentage of those covered with our devices. As you can see in the center, when they first start out, those barrels are of course full. But then over time, as you see to the right, things happen differently for every single barrel. Because we're tracking that angel share, color, and alcohol, we're able to tell them exactly which barrels are the best candidates for their high level, their mid, and their normal level products. It's basically optimizing their quality, efficiency, and profitability. We're delivering over 300% ROI compared to their traditional methods. Our solution is not just hardware, it is also a platform with ML-powered insights and alerts across any number of locations geographically. Our data is globally collected historical and comparative data. There's nothing really like this that they've ever had before. It's real-time visibility of this entire process. Our immediate addressable markets are $10.6 billion. We are starting in bourbon whiskey this year. We then will follow with US wine. And then after that, in about year 2 or year 3, we're talking about EU wine as well. But that's not the whole story. As you extend this to every spirit that's out there, and you look at the global market value, right now it sits at $1.6 trillion. We've already been contacted by a number of conglomerates already asking, when are we going on the market? And because we're the only solution that could be applied to every single brand in their portfolio, we are a very desirable acquisition for them, and that's our likely exit strategy. We have a number of patents in the US space, we have PCT patents in the international one system, and we have an EPO patent. These are gradually increasing month after month as we find new innovations on our engineering and our R&D side. We have no real direct competition. There are players on either that do a couple of things here in the wine space or a couple of things there in the spirit space, but no one does what we do across the board for the price that we can do it for. Net margins are 80% for our software, 30% for hardware. We're expecting a first year ARR of 5 million, and by year 3, that increases to 29 million. Traction to date, so we're signing Heaven Hill and Jim Beam. That's 4.9 million barrels for early beta testing. We have a collaborative study going with the Beam Institute. That's the leading academic center for American bourbon. We're going to present those findings at the Beam conference in March. And we have a high confidence level that these guys are going to convert to long-term partners because we've been seeing this work in both our lab and our engineering facilities for over a year. Our ask is a $10 million Series A equity round to accelerate growth. We've raised $3.8 million to date. We've oversubscribed every single round we've had, and I've put in $820,000 of my own money into the latest round. And we have an excellent team. We have extensive expert experience on wine and spirit side, startups, exits, various industries, operations, business strategy. And then on our advisor side, we have some of the best people in winemaking and bourbon who not only know the production of these great products, but also understand the chemistry and the science behind them. And with that, I'll take any questions that anybody might have.
Yes, if you have questions, please put it in the chat box. It's enabled now. And with that, Mike, first question is, who is the competition and how are you better?
So some of the competition are, for instance, there's a company called Wine Grid. There's another one called Barrel Wise in the wine space. They do one or two things. For instance, they'll check 1 or 2 parameters. But the problem is because they only check 1 or 2 parameters, they're not completing the picture of what they would normally get from their labs every week. So we're able to do all the core parameters they need every day for them. And they're able to see the deltas over time, which is something you don't get with other solutions. And the other thing too is that their model is a direct buy model, which is extremely expensive for these guys. And in the bourbon space, there's really no player that's looking at doing anything inside a bourbon barrel. That's because there are so many challenges, and there's a rigorous UL certification that we're going through right now and will be approved for as a Class 1 Div 1 device. There's a whole long list of differentiators we have. And again, like I said, the biggest one really is that we're the only one that we can adapt to any spirit, any wine within a conglomerate's portfolio, which means we can do rum, we can do tequila, we can do sake, we can do a lot of other spirits. Just tell us what the parameters are and we set it up to check that and do that. So we have a lot of really great differentiators that position us really well as we go into the market.
Next question is there much of a variance noted from the random barrel sampling that this solution is needed?
There is, because what happens is when they randomly pick these, when they drill into these barrels, they don't understand how much is left of that barrel for each barrel. And we've had this told to us by master distillers that they'll pick the barrels that they think are best because on the outside, they won't have any visible leaks or anything of that nature, but still doesn't mean that it's the best, most full, best color barrel to be using as a premium product. And they can't very well go and drill into every single barrel every day because it's a very tedious, labor-intensive process. So a lot of times, yes, they're picking the wrong barrels that there's 2 gallons here, 3 gallons there that they could have had for a premium product. And every gallon that's saved is 5 more bottles of their premium product. So it's a pretty substantial amount of money that could be potential revenue that's lost because they are picking the wrong barrels when they drill into these things, simply because they're blind to what's going on.
Great. Can you talk about the exits in this space and what kind of return investors are seeing?
In this kind of space, it's a pretty good return. I mean, multiples are in the double digits in some cases. I mean, we're looking at a lot of these startups that are comparable. Paul, I know you did a light sort of valuation study for us, but there's some pretty healthy numbers that are coming in still in wine and spirits. Even though there's shifting consumer demands and shifting interest in different spirits, the thing is that there's always going to be a need for wine and spirits. And the overall growth globally is strong and steady over time, no matter what really happens globally. So yeah, we're looking at really healthy multiples at the end when we expect to be acquired by a conglomerate within probably 2 or 3 years, I would imagine.
Right. You talk about the monetization model and how much of the revenue is recurring.
The model is based on so as far as retention, if that's what you mean, we expect to have a really strong retention. We think we're going to have growth. In other words, we'll have a minimal amount of coverage at first, maybe perhaps a couple of percent or 5% of their barrels when they have about 2 million barrels on site. But we expect that to grow over time. And again, these are 4-year contracts. So most of that money that we're seeing, obviously first year, a lot of it's going into inventory creation, but that second year and that third year and onward, it's increasing by quite a bit because one, we're getting once we have the inventory, we can keep using that inventory, of course, because we still own it because it's a SaaS model. But then also we're getting more margin gradually over time as we get better unit costs, better distribution, the volume itself alone, just in having the volume and inventory of devices and infrastructure behind the devices. So yeah, there's a lot of markers that we're seeing in our financial model that's going to grow pretty healthy over time.
Great. And the question is, what is your minimum investment from an angel investor, and do you have an SPV for small investors?
So we do have, just to be honest, to be clear, like we're going into our Series A, but we do have at the moment the tail end of a safe round that's being oversubscribed. We had originally wanted that to be a 500,000 round to build our trial devices, but it's going to go way over that. So we're expecting to kind of cap it at $1 million. The minimum on that round is 25K. We haven't looked at an SPV. We have done an SPV before through Carta. But at the moment, we would consider it, I think, for that safe round, obviously. But for the bigger Series A round, I think we're more in a 250 or 200 range for a minimum for people who want to subscribe. And we have had some interest already from VCs and subscribing to that. We're just simply kind of looking to identify the lead and other people to get signed on to that round.
And last question is, can you talk more about the team and some of the key players there and what skills they're bringing to this process?
Yeah, so myself, I have a lot of experience in the wine and spirit space. As I said, like I grew up in bourbon country. I worked quite a lot with Brown-Forman and others. Sazerac is out there as well. And as far as our team, I mean, Steve Kalen's on our team. He's got a lot of, he had a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund that he exited as part of a startup he had back in New York area, Connecticut area. Andrea is also a part of the team. She's had a massive amount of success. She was mostly in a healthcare and a data space and operations space. So she's handling a lot of our customer success. Reason being is because she had a lot of success at managing people and managing expectations and making sure people are happy with the results. So beyond that, I mean, David Becker, a lot of our people are, David Becker's on the financial side. He had a lot of experience with tech in that space. A lot of advisors have a lot of experience with tech and large scale tech and also startup level tech. A lot of the people I was going to mention on the leadership team included are current investors. So they have a passion for what we're doing and they're getting involved even after they're investing. A lot of the money we have right now is smart money behind what we're doing.
Great. And that's it for the questions. Thanks so much for a great presentation, Mike.
All right. Thank you.
Next up is BioMEMS of Andrew Dahl. Andrew, you can launch your slides and kick off when ready.
Okay, great. We have an end-to-end technology, captures the raw patient samples, processes, delivers lab quality results. That cartridge that you see there holds up to 10 different diagnostic tests, more than any other at point of need. But the big differentiator is that we can use commercially available lab tests. We can convert them to our platform. And basically, if you can operate a smartphone, you can administer a very sophisticated multi-analyte test pretty much anywhere. So this is really a breakthrough approach. There's no other test platform that can perform at this level outside a clinical lab. And what we're talking about is less than 1 part per trillion for a protein in urine. And we can use almost any biofluid as for a patient sample. So we're basically the hardware and software that can make slow, complex lab tests work faster, smarter outside the lab where they're needed most. And we not only provide the test results to the user or the clinician on the spot, but also simultaneously transmit results to providers, payers. There's an opportunity to monetize the data that we pull from the workflow to create additional streams. And our key differentiator here is both the quality and the timeliness of the data, which really rests on the precision and accuracy of the tests, which is quite frankly a core weakness of a lot of digital diagnostics and digital healthcare concepts, is that the quality of that first-party data. Now, we approach the diagnostics market opportunistically, and we develop tests in partnership with global brands, tests that they think are important. So as a platform, we're really not tied to any single disease or condition. We're initially developing healthy aging, infectious disease, nutritional deficiency, because there's non-dilutive funding available from the government, and there are corporate partners that want to enter these markets. And to validate our market traction with global brands and our business model, we've just inked a deal to develop a first-in-market canine Alzheimer's urine test with Hills Science Diet, which is a Colgate-Palmolive subsidiary. This is real revenue, begins with a sponsored feasibility study. That's followed by a roughly $2 million product development phase, and then a manufacturing contract with pre-negotiated margins and sales volumes. Now, lest you think a doggy Alzheimer's test is just an interesting sidebar, even a dead end, the data that we collect takes on greater significance when we apply it to humans. As it happens, gene signaling and disease pathway for Alzheimer's in dogs and humans are nearly identical, and as would be the diagnostics. So while we're getting paid to develop the test and then generate revenue selling doggy Alzheimer's, we're banking that data we remap it, we submit it to the FDA to accelerate approvals for our first ever non-invasive human Alzheimer's test without having to change much of anything. So back to the doggy test, we can enter the market without FDA approval for the dog test. And as soon as we're done developing it, we go to market with Hills. Now imagine whatever number we negotiate with Hills for contract manufacturing of a dog test, you can probably put another 3 zeros behind it for a human test. Now, once that first test is on its way, we start adding new test products to establish multiple revenue streams. Gross margin ranges from 50% to 500%, depending on the selected diagnostic targets and what our corporate partner can get in terms of a reimbursement. And our sell prices will range from $10 to $140 per cartridge. Now, the sales projections that you're seeing there, those nice hockey sticks, aren't really market adoption guesses. Rather, they're estimates of contract sales that we're negotiating with corporate partners in advance. So, and things like reimbursement, CPT codes, launch expenses, that's what our corporate partners handle, is the commercialization aspect of it. We benefit basically from contracted sales, stable cash flow, instant global footprint. Now, our go-to-market strategy is our business model. So we target global brands that make, market, or offer diagnostics as a service. We initially approach them to do studies, collaborations, co-ventures, like we did with Hills. And that drives early revenue for us, but it also allows them to test drive our technology with very little risk, gives them an opportunity to consider a new program, and maybe eventually a potential acquisition. And that's really our stated goal, to be acquired. There's no need to build a huge organization to commercialize our technology or manufacture it. Those organizations already exist, and you just saw their logos. So an acquirer needs 2 questions answered. Does it work? Can we produce it in huge quantities at low cost? And then comes the specific value proposition, which in our case is the ability to use existing FDA-approved diagnostics already performed in a lab that we can convert to point of need or at-home use. And in doing so, we crush the cost of development, compliance, manufacturing, while we're outperforming what's available at point of need or at home. Now, in terms of where we are, the founders have already placed $3 million of their own money. We're working to close $2 million in seed funding to engineer and build end-to-end demonstrators. In other words, we have everything in bits and pieces, but we want to put it into a single demonstration package for our prospective corporate partners. And that's what this 2 million seed round will do. And then we'll derive revenues like this project from Hills for the Alzheimer's test. We're also pitching a healthy aging test to Procter & Gamble. So between the funding that we get from investors and the non-dilutive funding that we get from our corporate partners, we will have enough runway to pursue and close several more such contracts. That will then be followed by the $2 million late seed, where we want to be able to answer the second question, which is, can we make a lot of it cheap? And then at that point, I believe that we're in play. We will be, potentially acquired by that point. If not, we go to our next phase, land a manufacturing contract, and then go out for a Series A to fund manufacturing startup. What's interesting about this is that we can start modeling exit windows. With the first such window, as we mentioned, at about a 20-month time frame, where we're showing that the entire platform works end to end, and we have a small pilot site that demonstrates manufacturability before we go out for a Series A. So this then becomes kind of a risk-return model. We can get out in less than 24 months with a good return, or we can get one OTC product to market in 30 months or multiple products and look at some very significant returns over the years with actually decreasing risk over time because we've got multiple revenue streams being developed. So we have the comps, models, case studies, market data to support the returns we're projecting. For an example, Quest paid $450 million to acquire Haystacks just 23 months after its $10 million seed round funded by Catalio Capital. That's a pretty darn good return. And it's happening because there are so few totally new technologies coming to market and very, very few at point of need or at home that break any new ground. Now, to get this moving, we're looking to close a $2 million seed round Q1 2025, fund the end-to-end platform demo we described. Again, we've put in $3 million in pre-seed funding, and we're able to produce our biosensors at 1,000 units at a time right now. So the sensor at the core of the whole platform. Use of proceeds is basically, let's get the demo units up and running in quantity within 12 to 14 months, close co-ventures and collaborations that bring in revenue, and then position us well for a $2 million late seed or bridge round to demonstrate manufacturability of this equation. Now we're a little bit ahead of schedule because we signed the co-development deal with Hills sort of in parallel as we're doing the demo development. So, you know, we're looking to close another one very, very soon. Now, the development team that made this all possible, led by Chief Science Officer Michael Puja, considered one of the world's top 10 diagnostic innovators, decades of successful product launches at Siemens and Bayer. His protege, Dr. Zane Baird, VP R&D, directs our development lab in Colorado. Jake Kapla, our lead engineer, holds multiple degrees in math, physics, engineering. He's the resident whiz kid developing the hardware and software. Yours truly, been around in executive and consulting roles in medtech and biotech for the past 20 years. And Trevor Mason, not pictured here, has just joined as CFO, and we're actively recruiting additional C-level management pending available funding. That's pretty much it.
Great. Thanks for the presentation. The first question is there a data play here?
There's a very significant data play. If you're familiar at all with a lot of these companies that do quote unquote digital diagnostics or digital healthcare remote monitoring, it's the quality of the data that matters. If you're getting how do you feel data, or you're getting, you know, body temperature and eye winks, then that's the data you're getting. We're getting super precise clinical lab quality results that can be input in terms of remote care monitoring. So it really enhances the game. Also, at the same time, we can pull the anonymized data, do meta-analysis, and sell it.
So what are the claims on the IP? How does that provide a moat around the business?
Okay, so the biosensor itself, the design of the biosensor, we've got a core patent. We've got 7 surround patents around its manufacture, how the data is generated by the sensor, the transmission of that data. So it's a fairly complex moat from a patent perspective. But we also have process things like how to functionalize the sensor, how to assemble the sensor that are being maintained as trade secrets. So we're not telling people fully how it works. Now we have a very robust trade secret protocol that would be turned over to a potential acquirer. But some of this stuff you don't want to patent because you don't want to show people how you're doing it.
That's great. And can you talk about some of the key players on the team that and what skills they bring to it?
Okay, so Michael Puja, 100 plus published papers and posters. In an industry where a diagnostic scientist can launch maybe 1 or 2 products in a career, major products, Pooja has launched over 20. He's named in 450 US and international patents. So this guy has some considerable stature.
Go ahead and finish that, and then we'll wrap up.
I said no, that Pooja has considerable stature in the in vitro diagnostics industry. He's globally recognized. And then his protege has been working with him for 8 years now, 3 of those for us.
Okay, great. We're at the end of our time. Thanks for a great presentation, Andrew. Appreciate that. And with that, let's move to our final presenter. We have Alan Foreman of Be Secure. Alan, you can launch your slides and kick off when ready.
Hey there. Thanks, Hall. Thank you very much indeed. Can you see me clearly? Can you see my screen, Hall?
Yes, we can. You're good to go.
Hey, good. And thank you very much indeed to the audience and to Hall and his team for making this happen today. It's important. I'm calling you from Belfast, Northern Ireland, and it's important for our journey that we get in front of US investors. Let me explain what we're doing, and I'll give you a chance at the end to answer any questions or throughout. We're in the business of transforming heart health. My name's Alan Foreman. I'm Chief Executive Officer of Be Secure, a company that I founded 9 years ago. Prior to that, I was 20 years in Accenture. I ran Accenture Life Sciences for Europe, spent a number of years actually in the northeast of the US. So we're on a journey right now, and the reason I reached out to Hall is that we're in the middle of a growth raise. It's a $12 million growth raise to take us to break even in our company, straight after an incredible turn of growth that we've just had from an FDA clearance, which I will explain to you. Off that $12 million, we have had committed already in the last 90 days, 4 million from existing investors, including a VC. And we've just had commitment of $5 million from a venture debt provider. So there's a lot of due diligence has been done. There are 5 venture capital firms in late stage due diligence, but the opportunity for speaking to you today, family offices and privates, is to close that last 2 to 3 million quicker than we might be able to do with VCs. My single goal right now is to commercialize this business. We've got a great opportunity, and let me show you why. A summary of the business, we're 9 years young. We're based out of a lab in Belfast, Northern Ireland, which is housed in the middle of 2 25,000 student university campuses, Queen's University, Belfast, University of Ulster, and we've been working to build a team between the UK and the US of 60 or so biomedical engineers, clinicians, data scientists, electrical engineers, and commercial team, all with a good experience in the markets we operate. To be clear, we're a B2B software firm. We make business-to-business software. We actually have 2 device-agnostic FDA clearances, so they're in the bag. They took quite a while to get there. We've invested $35 million US in the business, deep tech, and we're invested by venture capital and private equity from UK and in the last 3 years US. We have all the usual invention protection, patents, and we've got quite a number of partnerships. So how did we get started, and what do we do today? Our vision is to turn the world of healthcare, especially around heart health, from being reactive, so waiting until you have a stroke or maybe just arrhythmia or something more serious like heart failure, and turning that into something that's preventative. And we're on that journey. We've got a bunch of leading advisors, both European side and stateside, and a team that is based across both geographies. Why are we focused on this? And we heard from one of the other presenters who's focused on stroke. Cardiovascular disease is the largest, the number one cause of death in the world today. 18 million people or so tragically die every year, and many others live with life-restricting causes from cardiovascular. And it's just recently come to light, middle of last year, from RTI, that the cost of this is not only great today, but soaring. And within our next generation, in 25 years, the cost of this will be close to 5% of the US GDP, the cost of treating cardiovascular. It's also just been revealed that atrial fibrillation, which is one of the key determinants that may lead to stroke, has been 3 times underdiagnosed. And this is a crisis waiting to happen. We've been shouting about this for a couple of years. And since I've started this process with 10 Capital, and just 2 weeks ago, this headline broke. Philips, the #1 provider of heart monitoring technology in the US today, has had a FDA recall on their product. It's led to injury and death because of the inaccuracy, because of the issues with the process. This is precisely what we started our business journey on a number of years ago. Now, Philips happened to be one of my customers, so I will talk to you about this today and how we're helping. But there's been an awful lot of newsworthy stories of this about BeSecure, but also about recent investment in the space of heart health. And that's why, as an investor, you might be interested. So what is it? Our solution is FDA cleared. It comes in 2 forms. One first form, which was cleared 3 years ago, is embedded software onto physical devices. I'm wearing today a device called a Whoop device, which is manufactured out of Boston, Massachusetts. Our software is in the latest version of the Whoop device. Our software is in the current versions of Fitbit devices that are out there. So we went to market serving the worried well, the wellness market, which could give better accuracy from moving from basically light technology, the little light that shines behind these devices, into pure ECG technology, medical grade technology. And that's where we got started. However, we didn't stop there, and my passion was always medical. That's where I grew up in my career, and it was to address this huge problem that the healthcare service today is reactive, and we need to change that. So we're working on both of these, and let me tell you a little bit more about this software. HeartKey Core, our first product to be cleared, is essentially an on-device product. We've worked with the leading semiconductor manufacturers, Texas Instruments, Analog Devices, ST Micro, and Qualcomm, to put our software onto their chips that goes into every consumer device today and every medical device today. Okay, and that helped us to drive the consumer technology growth that has been put into Whoop and various other technologies I'll explain. Latterly, we then decided, when we went after the medical market, it was a completely different proposition. We worked with hospital systems, healthcare systems, and medical device companies to understand what problems they face today. And the biggest challenge they faced was the fact that there's electrical noise, there's motion artifact, there's an awful lot of noise around capturing a very difficult signal, the ECG. It's the #1 biomarker as you go into a healthcare environment, but you have to be connected generally to a 12-lead wet electrode system somewhere across your chest area and lie very still in a hospital environment. That's very, very restrictive, and it's our goal to put that same technology at the same quality level into everyday devices and to put those patient monitoring systems that only exist in hospitals today into the home to get as good quality as you can. That's the way we're going to transform this industry, and we've achieved that. We achieved it in September when the FDA granted us clearance for device agnostic software to be delivered in the cloud to all existing medical devices that exist out there, whether it's an implantable loop recorder from Medtronic, or a Holter monitor from Boston Scientific Preventice, or a patch from Dexcom. We can integrate in with all of those technologies without the need for them to go back for further FDA clearance. So let me give you a little bit more as we pare back, as it were, cut into the onion. And my screen will change momentarily, or not. Let me talk about the validation of what we're getting here. The validation, and there we go. As we can see our screen, this is what happens in today. If your physician gives you a 28-day Holter because you've come in with some condition, more than likely Philips or Boston Scientific in North America, that will be provided to you by one of those two companies. The data that comes back looks like the data in the top half of this graph. And electrophysiologists, Philips employ 1,400 of these people, and cardiologists have to sift through this to see which is false information, which is good information, before they can diagnose what's going on in your body. Well, put our cloud system on top of Philips' system or in the healthcare environment without the need for any FDA clearance. We simply switch it on top, and the data that comes through, clinically proven, gives a much cleaner signal, leading to the cardiologist to make an instant or almost instant decision. So we've got lots of applications on these two technologies. They're available on device and in the cloud, which was a key requirement of both our customers in the consumer space and medical. But we're not just improving by 1 or 2%. We're improving by huge levels, transformative levels. And the way we did this as a small company in Europe is we took a different optic on this altogether. We used cybersecurity experts in signal processing. We used experts from the field of automotive and aeronautical to look at how to gather a signal in the entire signal chain from the body, from the sensor to the analog front end, which translate the analog signal into digital, into the signal processing capability itself, and then to greater algorithms that healthcare professionals seem to want. So we've worked for 2 years on the medical side before we got clearance and approval from that body of experts. We have the world's largest database for heartbeats, both healthy and unhealthy, some of which, quite a lot of which, we had to gather ourselves in clinical trials on both sides of the pond. And we've used some of the leading research institutes again to gather that. So this is a journey. We're at what we call our Series A extension, our growth raise. We've captured the ECG market for software. That's the journey of commercialization we're on right now. But we have other technologies down the line which have even more exciting possibilities. So how do we make money? We work in these two huge markets, and we work with the same technology to serve both markets. It does not need to be altered in any way. Some customers choose to sync it a little bit with their systems, but in general, it is off-the-shelf packages of algorithms that are completely black boxed and serve to process data, not hold or maintain individuals' patient data, for example, which, as many of you will know, is a bit of a no-no in the healthcare world. We make the money from project work, but mainly in our recurring space royalty for the on-device model. That's the type of technology that's in Whoop, it's going into Aura, it's in Fitbit today and various other technologies. But in the future, and actually we're switching on now, it's in healthcare providers, but on a cloud basis, software as a service. We just got clearance in September. We've already got recurring revenue paying customers in North America who are using our service in their live environment. So that was a very, very speedy route to market for us. We are small, so we know our limitations, and I think as an early stage company, it's wise to focus. We have a great breadth, as you see here, for the areas that we can dip into. We're already doing some work on the far right, hospital telemetry, that's remote patient monitoring is another phrase, or in the implantable loop recorder space with Medtronic. But we've decided, first of all, to win in the ambulatory ECG space. Let me dive one stage further. There are 103 providers of this service in North America today, supporting 5 reimbursement codes from healthcare systems. And we know this market inside out because we hired guys from the top 3 on this list here to serve us in the last 2 years. We're working with all of the top 10, as you see here today. Some are further along than others in their evaluation of our technology. And as you saw from that headline just 2 weeks ago, unfortunately, Philips have hit a very, very massive obstacle. And all those other competitors are queuing up behind them. No longer can people look to just achieve what Philips have achieved. In fact, Philips and everyone has to up their game. They cannot do that with more resource. There are no more resource in the cardiology field or to be trained fast enough, but they can do it with our technology, and that's why it's a pure decision to build or buy. Our revenue was $1.4 million last year, and we have got a forecast of just over $8 million for this year, but I can tell you now $4 million of that's already booked, and we have contracts pending and in legals of various stages, all of which we can't depend upon or when they start, of $12 million. Already, this is January, and that's a very good position. That's all come very fast-paced off the back of our recent clearance. Quoted at the bottom here on our forecast is that we may make $1 to $3 per study in our SaaS model. We have just made an agreement with a tier 2 ambulatory ECG provider for $22 per study. So we can do potentially much more than this. That's the upside. So why am I here? Let me remind you of the investment pitch. A company called Orlando Health, which is focused in hospital systems in the southeast, invested $10 million late 23. That was to help us get FDA clearance and then to get into the process of commercialization. We have, as I said earlier, already committed $4 million from existing investors, one venture capital firm, First Capital Ventures from up in Denver, and the balance is coming in from venture capital or venture debt. Venture debt, we have a secured term sheet of $5.2 million from a company called Beachpoint, which is joint US and UK focused. We're looking for you guys potentially to put in up to 2 million. Ideally, we'd look for minimum check size of 250K. We would consider lower if you want to speak to us, but we can also go higher than 2 million if you think you have that source. That source, we look for speed. I want to focus my full team's activity on commercializing the top 10, in fact, the top 30 ambulatory ECG companies right now. So to finish off, and I look forward to any questions you may have, we're on track to be processing 1 trillion heartbeats per day. That actually only represents all of the customers in North America from one insurer, Blue Cross Blue Shield. You will beat 103,000 times a day or so, and they have 105 million insured, and that is 1 trillion heartbeats. They are one of the venture capital firms that we're talking to, Blue Cross, Blue Shields, Sandbox, and Blue Ventures Fund. And we have, through building the software, as Google put it, the intel inside of biosensing to reach everyone on the planet. I'll take any questions you have about the company, our background, the investment, whatever you wish. Thank you very much, Hall.
So great presentation, Alan. First question is, what have you done to put in factors for scaling the business? We're moving into a very high level, high growth. What are you doing to get ready for that growth curve?
Yeah, 2 things. We designed the SaaS software that it's implementable and configurable to whatever extent the customer wants. Actually, we have a team of engineers that sit with our customers to configure it whatever way. But what we've found so far in 22 of the medical customers that we've worked with is they don't even seek configuration changes. But one of the early guys, a company from Oregon, TZ Medical, they did require some configuration. It took about 8 hours of our engineers' time. So it is out of the box software that can give transformative levels. I can quote informal reports that we've just fed back to Boston Scientific on their current system. And with our uncustomized deployment onto their environment, we saw improvement of 40% in the data throughput. And what that means for them is with the same number of staff, they currently do 2 million studies a year. They can do 40% more than that with the same staff next year if they choose. So they can go after Philips market at a more efficiency. So the scaling is in how we've designed the technology. We are scaling our sales team. We've got 2 more salespeople to put in this year, but we don't need to scale that much to serve our markets that you saw today.
What's the average design time or design in time for new customers? How long does it take to design it in and get it on the market?
Yeah, from the initial conversation with TZ Medical, who are a tier 2, tier 3 provider in the Northwest, they, from the initial meeting through to onto their live environment, it was 4.5 weeks. Boston Scientific have done 3 studies since September. The first one was on a small number of patients' data. The second was a larger base. The third study that finished just at Christmas time was on a very large, very difficult database that they would handle in a month. So the results are back, and we know they're transformative, and that's gone to their investment committee to see now can they bring that into their system. So that's 4.5 months, and that's a tier 1 provider. So it depends on the scale basically and how much they're in a position to take. We are on a list of priorities I would suggest that Boston Scientific have right now. However, the temperature has really risen since this unfortunate news coming from Philips two weeks ago for everyone to up their game in the data quality space. Right.
And the final question is, what's the average life cycle of one of the deals? How often do they come back for redesign? Every 2, 3, 5, 10 years? I know it ranges, but what do you think the average is?
Yeah, for HeartKey Rhythm, which is in the market today, every deal we're penning is 3 years in duration. However, let me give you an example of Whoop, which is one of our customers with HeartKey Core. That's a 3-year contract. In fact, for anyone who knows that product, they're about to launch Whoop 5.0 in April with our technology in it, and that will last 3 years from that launch point. And we get royalties on every device. But we've already started a separate contract to design Whoop 6.0, which will be on the shelves in about 2 years' time. So that scales on top of it. Interesting, another customer is using both our products. So Aura, which is a smart ring designer from the Northwest, San Francisco to you guys. Great product. They're actually taking on our embedded core product as a royalty, and they're also taking on our SaaS product to give additional features that the customer can subscribe to. So that's a hybrid, and therefore we're going to have 2 contracts with them that will go simultaneous. Okay.
Great. Very good. Well, that's the end of our questions. Thanks so much, Alan, for a great presentation. With those in the audience, if you haven't voted yet, go ahead and vote on the poll. With that, we're going to go ahead and close out our session today. I want to thank everybody for joining us. We had a great presentation from Herbert, and all the other presenters did a great job as well. I want to thank you guys for coming today. We'll be in touch with the follow-up, the recording of these sessions, and reach back out in touch and make introductions where those are requested. But I want to thank everybody for their time and for their presentation. And with that, we'll see you guys next time. Have a good day.
Just so everyone knows, we will not be running our breakout rooms today. We will do them the next event. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you.